things that we have covered, just to make sure that we are on the same page, because it's been like a week that we have not looked at back. So before we get into the setup, we'll go over the basic ones once again. Introduction to AEM, Web Content Management System. It's primarily used for marketing-based content management system. There are different types of content management systems available, and AEM is very specifically marketing and campaign-oriented content management system. It's been quite commonly used in those sectors. Client-server model, easy to build, easy to deploy. It has effective cache management system. The stack, the base layer, which is the Java virtual machine, and then you have on top of it is the OSGi layer, and on top of OSGi you have the JCRs, and on top of JCRs you have the slings, which is nothing but the translators, and then the CQWCM layer, which is the end rendering layer. This is the technology stack on a high level, and then we slightly did a deep dive about all of this. What is the OSGi layer? OSGi layer is nothing but consists of bundles. It does not need a Java restart. It's just that the bundles can get restarted as and when it's updated. JCRs are the ones which talk to the end system. If we use JCRs, they talk to the end system for storing the Java in a Java, for storing the content in a Java format. And there are n number of APIs available for JCR interactions. Adobe CQ5 uses only one API, which is for read and write, and there are like 700 to 800 APIs available for different actions to be performed on the JCR content, but Adobe uses only one, which is the read and write on the oak layer. So the JCR is nothing but the oak that we are using, and on the oak we use only one API, which is for read and write. The rest of the APIs we don't use. I mean, technically Adobe don't use. But if you go over read about Oak, you could figure out what are all those APIs can do. Sling layer, once again, Apache Sling, it's nothing but a translator or a rewriter. Reads the content from here, translates and give it back here, and the same, right? No more acts like an intermediator. And then the CQ5 WCM layer, which is nothing but the end user consumption layer, where it's more a English-based one. So it's a human readable format, and the human readable visualization is going to give it to us. That's pretty much on the technology stack. Let's go over about how we can set up an author instance. So I have a CQ5 okay. I have a CQ5 6.2 version for author. So what I'm going to do is okay, so let's look at the prerequisite of this. So we need Java 1.8 to be installed. So I have a Java installed already on my machine, so it's going to have Java 1.8. So if we have to use anything which is later than AEM 6.1 version, Java 1.8 is recommended. I mean, it still works on Java 1.7, but the recommended and the supported one is Java 1.8. And that's the JDK one, Java Development Toolkit, and not JRE one, not runtime ones. So stop by if you have any questions. AEM 6.2 jar file is required, and then the AEM license is required. So I have a AEM jar file right here, and then I have a license file as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this with this command not work because I changed to AEM 6.2. I'm going to run the command java-jar. It's nothing but unpacking the jar and then starting the instance. So I'm going to start the instance. So I started this way. This is going to stay in the screen like this. It does not start in the background, it starts in the foreground. So the moment I do a Control-C, the application will stop. So we'll have to look at how we have to run the background one as well. So Currently I'm just running it on the foreground so that we get to see the UI coming up. It generally takes quite a while. I'll show you the logs, how the logs will look like. So it forms a folder called, okay, let's go here once again. So the moment you start, you see this, the CRX quick start, this is the base folder, and this folder gets created. Underneath this, you would find pretty much everything. You find logs, which is nothing but the name suggests. It's going to log all the logging information. Repository is actually the one which stores all the content related information, right? Whatever that we're going to create, whatever that is already available, and all of that, including the components. Then another interesting one is the launchpad. The launchpad is the one which is going to have all the bundles, which is the OSGi bundle. So every bundle that that is going to run on the OSGi layer is available in the launchpad, under that folder. Bin, as the name suggests, it's a binary location where it gives you a startup and a shutdown file, and then few other configurations available. Conf is technically for all the configurations which you want to maintain externally outside the system. There is a conf location inside the system. I'll show you that. If you don't want to manage it there and you want to manage it as a file, and conf is the place that you have to go put that file and it will get picked up. And obviously it needs a restart. If you have to put a conf file, which is a flat file, then you have to restart the instance. So this is pretty much the folder structure, and you would find different areas. You would find segment stores, you would find indexes. Segment stores are nothing but the actual stores. Yeah, another interesting point is AEM stores, be it the data, be it the component, anything in the format of tar files, right? So that's not a human readable one, and those tar files are generated by using the Oak, the JCR layer. The Oak generates the files as in tar format, and it is only the Oak APIs can read and write into it. I mean, no one can technically do anything like that. So that's pretty much about the folder structure. So let's go to the logs and see how it looks like. So there are different types of logs. We will talk about this when we get into different types of logs. It is still starting up. It's not up yet, I believe. No, it's not up yet. So error log is actually the one which is going to have like all the information in it, including info, debug, warn. If there are any trace logs, everything will be logged in the error log file. It generally takes about like 5 minutes, close to 5 minutes, or a little more than that. This is a standalone setup, so there are no MongoDB, nothing. It's just a standalone setup. So generally, standalone setup takes a little lesser time than the MongoDB because it has to write this. You have any questions until now?
Yes, I have one question. If I got error in our CRX, then we will go through this log file, right?
Yes.
So how I will know any log means any error inside our log file? Because so this log file already running, right? Means this one.
No, this will stop as soon as the application is started up. It's actually starting up all the services. That's why the log is writing like crazily. Once the application is started up, you would see the log will slow down in terms of writing. And interestingly, when it becomes application level errors, it is generally recommended that people write their own application log and not use the error log. Error log is technically for all the AEM related errors. And say for example, if I have an application ABC, it is recommended I have a abc.log or something, right? So that all the application related logs get written over there. So I'll show you how you can set up those logs as well, right? Because say for example, when you do a development, you would do something like com dot so and so dot abc dot whatever it is, right? So based on your setup, you could define your log on where it has to write. Right? By default, it will write it in error log as well. But other than that, in which log do you want to write a specific log? Right? Say, for example, there is something called com.aem.audit. So and so. So what they've done is they put until audit, they have write it into an audit log. Right? So that technically means that you can write it into a log, which is very specific to your application, right? Or to an action for you.
No, my question is, if I got some error inside our for related on AEM, then I will go through this error log file.
Correct.
Just
correct.
yes. So how I will identify the error inside this error log file? First, I will go through this from this error log. After, how I will modify identify where this error is showing, or else
No,
just run this file.
No, not run this file. You have to open the file, if you have to take it locally take that file and then open the file and see where all you get the stack traces, right? Generally, errors show it up as error or it will have a stack trace like this, right? So you see there is a stack trace. This is not an error generally because it's the session inactivity, but you would see that, right? It's a warning, it's not an error, and you would get a stack trace to it. This you can figure out there is an error happen, and you can see where the error has happened as well. Let's go down. See, it clearly says the session has been idle for 1 minute and might be out of date. Consider using a fresh session, right? So like this, it will tell you which file or which location it is it's throwing an error, or which action it's throwing an error.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is like running the log. If you want to open the log just to read purpose, just open it this way, and then you can move it over towards the whole log. Right, let me go down, and then I can move it up to see what are all the errors in the log. Right, it's generally quite a big log. If there is AEM related errors, when you got to see this. Otherwise, generally it is advised to have a application specific log, because it becomes so tedious for someone to figure out whether it's an AEM error or a application error, because this like crazily fills up so fastly.
For application error, the command is different, right? Means error.log something.
It depends on what kind of log file you want to write. I can keep any file, right? Like that, I can keep a abc.log as well, right?
Okay.
So not necessarily to be error.log. Error.log is generally meant to be for AEM errors. So I mean, I can keep something like, if I have an application called ABC, I'll keep a log file for mine as abc.log, which will still be available in the same location.
No, before you just wrote some command, right? This this minus yes, this one.
This is to open the file. This is
not
editor.
Not error.log. Before you wrote some command, right? This
You want to do this? This is
yes,
like running the
yes,
logs to see
yes,
what
this
is going on.
We are using the same command. For if I
Yeah.
get some error inside AEM or CRX related issues, then we run this file. But
Yeah,
I
this
don't know
is.
how I will identify where this error. So I asked this question.
This is for running the logs, right? For running
Yes.
logs, if I do some action, right, and the log has to be, showed up over here. Let me go. I don't know whether it will really show any errors now, but for example, okay, let me do this. Put this out. I log out. Not be anything for now. See, there is an error that I have logged out of the system. Anonymous access is not granted, so it takes me to the login page, right? So it is a running log, which means whatever that action that I do now, it shows up here, right? But if you want to see, there is, say, for example, 5 minutes back something has happened, right? That is very difficult to see in running a tail log, right? For that, you have to open either less or VI or whatever that, editors that you guys prefer to do it. Use that editor and then maybe go to the time, whatever the time that I want to go. Right? So that makes it easy for you to take a look at it. This is only for running the logs, right? Say, for example, I have to perform an action and see what is happening, right? That is when it is very, very useful, right? So I go do that action, come back and see this log, see if there are any traces or anything happened in the log, right? Anything happened while I'm doing the action. This is called a running log. Generally, tail-s is called running log display.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is the login screen, and this is what you get in login. I believe you have done a developer course, so you would definitely know all of this. So I'm logging in as admin. So these are all the default already available templates inside AEM. So they give these examples that you could just use it. Not in the core projects, but while trying to play around with, you can use these projects, right? So this is where the projects are. Let's go to, okay, so let's not get into any of this. So this is what AEM is, right? You get to log in, you go to the landing page, and this is technically how AEM is started up, right? So this is running and it's up. Um, this is how you set up an author. I'll show you how you have to run it in the background so that you get to know how you can run it in the background. One is that. The other is we'll go over about how we do the publisher as well. Yeah. So there are 2-3 ways of starting it up as well. I'll show you how you can do that. It depends on your requirement generally. But we could see how we can do that. See, the first time when you do all of this, right, is actually when, okay, I'm stopping the instance for now. I don't need this. So let's stop the instance and start looking at how we can start these instances. Okay, so I've stopped it. It takes a while to stop. If I try accessing it, I should not be able to go. So 4502 is the default port. If 4502 is picked up by some other process, it will automatically use a different port. And 4502 is generally for author, and 4503 is generally for publishers. Okay, back onto this. The application is stopped. If I run this, it will not display anything to me. Yeah, which is true because the application is stopped. So now you have an unpacked CQ6.5 jar file. So now you can go here and do the startup script here as well. You can do a start. This will also start the application. Right. So this has a very clear start and stop. So you could use those commands. The only thing that why we have to use this jar rather the other one for only one reason, if at all if that is not required for you, so is if we are doing a clustering, AEM clustering is really when we need the external jar to be run, because the external jar is the one can help you do the clustering. The CRF, if we run the start file which is given by them, the clustering is not possible in that. MongoDB clustering is possible, not the tar file based clustering is possible, right? The master standby is not possible. So that is the only reason that you have to run this. If that is not the requirement, then it is very easy to go. The moment it is unpacked first time, it's very easy to go here and then do the start command, right? This will also start. So if you see, it has already started. It would have already started running a Java process. Let me look at it. See, it's already started, and my an application is about to start up, right? So let me go look at the logs to see if it is really starting up. See, it's starting up. It's starting all the bundles one after the other. It has close to like about 400 bundles which has to be started. So it is starting those bundles. So the first time startup will generally take time because it has to unpack and then start up. It has to put all of those in the tar file. So all of that happens on the first startup. The second startup onwards, it's fairly quick. It will come up pretty fast, right? Because it's already unpacked and all the tar files have got all the bundle related information and all of that. So it generally comes up much faster than the first startup. And the subsequent ones are always faster, right? Compared to the first startup. So the system should once again come up and then we should be able to log into the system. No degradation in terms of functionalities. Everything is the same. It's just the startup command that we use is different. That's about it.
You are running this command in command prompt or any editor using like Git or something else?
No, I'm running it in the command prompt. This is my local machine. This one is my local machine. So do you use a Windows machine or a Linux or Unix based machine? Because that's when you get to know the commands. If you are using a Windows machine, then probably we have to switch to Windows machine and start installing it there and getting, because I mean the application wise it's not different. Maybe the commands to start up, shut down, and then the other commands might differ. That's about it. Because there it's more of a click thing. Here it's more of a command. Like everything is a command here. And Windows is obviously it's more of a click thing. The moment you click, even double click the jar file, it will start coming up. So all of that is straightforward on Windows.
Okay, but this command is working in our normal command prompt?
No, so do you use a Windows machine or a Linux machine? That
No,
Unix machine, let's put it that way.
no, I am using this Windows machine, but this command is working.
Okay, so the application is up and I'm able to log in once again. There are no degradations in the application, just that the startup is different. So this command will still work. If you do a Java -jar and then the CQ5 file, that will still work in Windows as well. But Windows straightforward, you go double click this jar file in whichever location that you have, it will straight away start it. The only thing is, wherever you have the jar file, you have the license file also to be there in that location. Right? Otherwise, the application will not work. It will start telling you that you have to go register. So I'll quickly show you where you can see the license information.
You told me this application is off, means this application is this author instant restarted or some.
No, I have used this command to start, right? I used I used this command to start the application to show you there is a way to start inside the application as well.
Yes.
Right, so now the application is up. If you see this, this is the license information, and there's a whole bunch of sections that we have to go over one after the other. We will talk about workflows, we will talk about replications. So we'll all of this is part of every other section that we are going to talk about in AEM, because everything is a different section in AEM and it has a different not technically URL but different areas in terms of how they function. Right, all of them are just packaged together, but everything acts, works as an individual identity inside the system. So this is actually the wholesome URL. The moment you give welcome.html, you would get to the page where you can technically move to any AEM available service, and you can go there. Right, so the navigation is available from the welcome.html page. You can go to any AEM available service, be it workflows, be it content management, where you have to publish content or whatever that you want to do. Where you want to go to a development environment, which is nothing but a CRXDE, where you want to go to replication agent. So everything is possible from one location. That is about startup. So you could do two ways. One is using the direct jar, which is available here. The other is using the startup file which they have given. Once it started first time, then you can go and do the start file, and that technically starts the application. So that is pretty much about starting up in an authoring instance. By default, AEM starts the instance as author. If we have to give it as a publisher, so we have to give the command -r run mode publish. So we have to give run mode as publish. Otherwise, what we can do is we can make AEM understand that in the name itself we can change from author to publisher. It will start it as publish, right? And the port is 4503. Otherwise, say for example, if I have a jar file called aem.jar and I don't give any run mode to it, it will by default start as authoring instance. So what I have to do is I have to give run mode to start it as publish. And then, for example, if I have to run production dev, I'll have to give run mode as config as dev or production, so that it takes those configuration files. So all of that is part of run mode configurations in AEM. So another interesting one that we have to know in AEM is the sling.properties file. So this is where we mention what instance it is and all of that. So this is possible to change. Generally not advisable to change, but you can change here, and that takes effect. See, our install mode option is there is only AEM author or publish is possible. We run it as crx3 tar, which is our instance. So all of this is possible. So when we do a run mode, we can mention our run mode is author, and it's a crx3 tar file, and then we can mention whether we want sample content or not sample content, right? So sample content is nothing but this content. For example, let me go to the projects location. So these are all sample content, right? Whatever is available here. So the moment I give no sample content, this sample content will not be installed. So generally in production environments, people don't do any sample content there, right? So it's advisable doing that way. So these are all the run modes available. So if you open the sling.property, you would get to know what you can do in there. So these are all run modes available. It could be either author or publisher. It could, the tar that is working is called crx3 version. It's the latest version, crx3 tar. The crx is called, and then you can do a sample or a no sample content. Sample content is nothing but it gives the sample content. No sample content means it will not install those sample content bundles and their relative content. So what is crx3 is? Crx is nothing but the Adobe version of calling it what version of their core repository it is, right? And that is very specific to Adobe. Until 5.6, until 5.5 it was crx2 version. From 5.6 they started with called crx3 version, right? This is very, very specific to Adobe. This has nothing to do with Oak or nothing to do with any of the external tools that they use, but it is very specific to Adobe. It does not carry any value to it, but technically the underlying tools have been upgraded for crx3 version. So when they move from their old method of doing JCR to Oak, they call it as crx3, right? So technically when they are moved, they call technically when they are moved from their old JCR model into using Oak model, they call their crx version as crx3 version. That is what it's been meant here for your understanding. And then there is a launchpad config file, and all of these are not very specific to us. We don't have to worry about, because these are all so I think one that we have to know about is this, and then the comms log file. Info means it technically logs everything. So for example, if you give error, in the error log file you would only get error information, no info, warning, nothing you would get. So that is very important here to mention if you want to do that. And the other one is the Sling run mode properties. The rest of the ones are very specific to AM, and we don't have to change anything. um, there are few other areas that we could change, but not advisable to do is we could mention what log file size it can be, where is the repository, if you want to change the repository. For example, people use common how do I say, people use networked repositories. For example, they do a they do a SAN, and then they connect like 4 or 5 boxes to the same repository. So in those cases we could mention which repository it is pointing to, but otherwise it's generally the local area wherever that we use the system. There are few other areas not needed to be changed, but this file is pretty much the master file to be called for any kind of AEM configuration changes. So this file takes more effect changing it here rather than in the other places, right? So this file has more priority to it in terms of what configurations it has to pick up. Uh, that is pretty much about it. Any questions on this?
No, I don't have any questions. But one thing, I am using this Windows system, then this command is work or not in my system?
Tail may not work. You might have to open the log and see, double click, open the log and see. Windows does not have an option, I believe, to do a running log. So every time that you have to open the log and then refresh the page so that it it kind of helps you get the latest.
I'm using this Windows system in my office also, but they people are using this JIT. So inside JIT, this command is working. Means our team people is using the same command. I think, I don't know exactly, but the same command they are using for checking these logs and everything.
Yeah, they might probably use one of their editors to do, right? Not directly in the direct mission. Direct mission is not possible.
Yes, they are using installing this JIT bus. After that, they will do.
They use a Git. Git is nothing but a repository, a code repository. I don't think they could really do anything out in the Git. Either they should have a Sigwin, which is a Linux-based experience that gives for them, or something around that, likewise Sigwin, so that gives visibility or capability for them to run tail commands. But otherwise,
So
you shouldn't be able.
I want to run all this command because this is useful for me. So you can send me all of this command. I want.
See, I can give you these commands. This is pretty much how it works on a Linux-based environment. So keep the commands handy with you. That will be helpful, because in no production environment people use Windows missions. So Windows missions is generally people use it only on the developmental section, so that they could install their Eclipse or whatever the code editor that they could use. That will become more easy for them to use. So it is generally used across in the developmental areas where people use Windows, and then they have their code editor like Eclipse or PHP Storm or whatever it is, right? So the code editor, and then they use these jars to run it in their local. But when it moves out from the developmental side and into either you be it a QA or be it a staging environment, it's always if you go take a deeper look at it, people use only Linux environments to just because it gives a lot of stability and sturdiness for them to host it, right? So I'll give you these commands. These commands are part of the presentation, so I'll give it over to you. So it should be available for you. I'll update the other commands as well in terms of how you can start it inside the CRX quick start as well.
So you have
Okay.
already all this command, right? Means everything you wrote, this command you have.
Yeah, I do have these commands.
Okay, but generally how I will use this command in my Windows machines in local, means my personal laptop. How I will use.
The Windows machines, interestingly, what you could do is the suggestion is to double click the jar file and it starts up. And that's a
Mhm.
recommended one because that starts a Java process altogether. And then we could have something like this installed. This will help you give uh, a Linux-like experience for you. Let me figure that out. So this will kind of give you a Linux-like environment for you so that you run all the Linux-based commands inside it. I will do one thing. I'll have a mission tomorrow. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, sorry, my other connection got disconnected. So what I'll do is I'll have a Windows environment tomorrow, and I'll have this segment installed and show you how you can use the Linux commands in the Windows environment, so that you could technically can be able to set up the same thing in your local Windows machine as well.
Okay.
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 Uh, okay. Anything on the author setup in terms of how you have to start the author? So why the file has to be of this name? It's technically to kind of, give you a understanding that it's an authoring instance which runs on 450 port, and it's a 6.2 instance, and that's pretty much is why we mention all of this, right? So that we come to know that it's an authoring instance. That's the naming conventions are that. That's about it. There are no specifications of why the file has to be of this name.
Mhm.
Anything else that you want to know about in this area? So this is how you set up. We'll go deeper into all of these different sections that we have seen here on the welcome.html. This is down the line when we go through the training, maybe in like couple of more classes. We'll start seeing all of this. Once we have an author publisher setup done, we get to do the practical experiences of it, and then we will move over into explaining all of these sections.
Mhm.
Any questions on the author setup?
No.
No. Okay.
No, if I get some problem because I'm using this Windows 10, so for installing, if I get some problem, then you can please help me for this.
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, we'll get to troubleshoot that on the call. No worries.
Okay.
So what I'll do is, given the time that today I'll go over about how we can set up the publishers as well. Get in here. Okay. So let's see how the publishers are gonna be as well. So you are aware about how an authoring instance works and how a publisher instance works, right? Should I go over about what is an author, what's a publisher, and how do they really connect each other?
Mhm.
Okay, so authoring instance is generally the instance, as the name suggests, content and everything gets authored there, and then those content gets moved over into publisher by using a replication agent. So the moment we go and publish the content, the content will get moved over into a publishing instance. The publishing instance generally have lesser bundles run compared to author, because author runs a lot of authentication and other bundles, because it to give a lot more capability for the content author to write the content or to author the content. And publisher is generally a rendering piece. It does not do a lot of calculations and manipulations or executions. It is straight a rendering engine, and it renders the content back to the end user, right? So generally it does not have the full capability of an authoring instance. It's generally whatever is needed for a publisher, and it's more a secured environment compared to author. So it has less capability compared to author, and it has been used only as a rendering engine. It does not do a lot of calculations or manipulations. So that is a publisher, and the data from author to publisher is being copied over through a replication agent. And we'll go over about what a replication agent is and how replication agents are configured later down the line. So I'll quickly go and start a publishing instance. I run out of space, so what I'll do is I'll stop my CRX build. I do a stop.
No, you can give me all this command. I really need this because I how it is run and everything I want to know. So you can
Yeah,
give.
I'll send you these commands as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, I really need this one.
Okay. So it is stopped. So I have a very less space in the machine. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to have my authoring instance in the system. I'll delete them. And what I'll do is I'll start a publishing instance. So what I will do is to make sure that we have a correct naming conventions, I'm going to do it as publish, and then I change the port as 4503. P is required, so I'm going to do a 4503. So now I have this. I'm going to start a publishing instance. Java-jar CQ publish, just to make sure that it's starting as publishing instance. I will run the run mode as publisher, so that I don't get into a challenge of it is starting it as an author. So if you see this, setting the run mode as publish and setting the port as 4503, right? So this itself very clearly says the instance is starting as publishing instance, right? So you could get to see from here generally. Right? Sorry.
Why use this one PS minus EF then great Java? I think this one is Linux command, right?
Yeah, that's a Linux command.
Okay. Oh, okay. Can you send me? Actually, I really confused for this all these commands. So after you send me, then I will try on my system.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I think tomorrow you can use this Windows system, right? And install this Linux. How will Linux in our Windows system? Yes. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's gonna start. It's gonna take a while to start. This is the first time start for a publisher, so it's gonna take a while to start. In the meantime, can you give me your ID that I can send this over to? Maybe a Gmail ID or something.
Yes, one moment, I just pinged you.
Yeah, with that. So the publishing instances does not have all of these auth modules installed. So if you see when you start up an author and you put the port and you put the domain or the port together, the first thing you got to do is login. Without login, you cannot do anything inside the author instance at all. In the publishing instance, that's not the case. There is no authentication module for the system, and it will not allow you to get into the system at all, right? All we get to do is get to see the published pages, and that's the only thing that we can do with a publishing instance. Except for an admin can go to the backend and then make changes into the system. Pretty much for an end user or for anybody, it's just the system which has only the published content.
And I think you get this AN license, right? This license jar file.
Yes.
Then when you send to me, because I think I will set up in my system, and if I get any issues, then I will share with you.
Yeah, I'll send that over, and that's the reason I got your access as well.
Okay, okay. Today I will go through this setup. If I faced any issue, then tomorrow we will check.
Yeah,
We will
sure.
both check this. Yes.
Instance to come out. Yeah. So look at the publishing instance, right? Right. It
Yes.
lands into a published page. This is a published page, right?
Mm,
And it lands into the published page. It does not give us a login page at all. If you remember
yes.
on the author, the first thing that we got is a login page,
Mhm.
right? And this is a text test content. So I mean, on a general note that this is how a website will look like. You could move it into different components. So it's more like how a website has been designed. Right? But that's
Mhm.
this is what an end user needs to see, right? I mean, you have to go to one
Yes.
of the tabs that he wants to get to, and then he goes selects one of the areas and goes to that, right? I mean, like a shopping cart thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
this is just an end user experience, right? This is what it is. and that's what a publisher is meant for. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, so this is how a publisher starts, and publisher is once again the same way. Interestingly, that you could start it using the Java if and Java command. Okay. I'm going to stop the instance. Um,
If we want to stop this instance, then for using this exit or something else, you wrote means you will write this command.
no, you can
Or
do a control.
just
If
put
you look
on
at this,
stop.
you do a control C, it stops.
Okay.
If you run it in the Windows machine, it is very straightforward. There is a process which is running. You just go click the cross button and it stops.
Yeah.
Or else what I have to do is I have to do a kill, right? So, but interestingly, this is the first time startup. So you see this, we have done first time startup and we have got a CRX. What you can do is next time onwards, you can go use this start command here. So this start command, interestingly, if you use this start command, you can use the stop command. That will stop the process. You don't have to kill or do anything, right? Start the process and then stop the process. So this
No,
sits in.
tomorrow onwards we will use this one you show me for this Linux, and we will regularly use this Linux command for this in Windows.
Yeah, I can show you that.
Yes.
So this is how it it will be. So you can go to bin from the second time. First time you have to unpack it. The second time onwards you can go to the bin and then use the start command and stop command, which will technically start and stop the application. And this is how a publisher will look like, right? On a general note about this is the startup of author and publisher setup. Maybe go to the IP, you see that, or you do a control C to kill the process, right? So this is what touch optimizer. Okay, so this is the next set that we're going to see. Maybe tomorrow, once your setup and all is done, the next topic that we're going to get into is authoring and touch optimized UI. Okay.
Yes.
This is pretty much about it. What we can do is we can wind up today, and then we will settle back tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you have any questions, keep it noted down. We will first take the questions to answer, and then we will go over the next set of items in the training. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll wind up today, and then we'll catch up tomorrow. Thank you.
Sir. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.